Good evening, everyone. And welcome to a complete reading of my new book, Spider House Rules. Look how scared Marty is, because of the book. You ready? You ready to read this? I'm gonna shut off I Am the Wind. I still have the cape. Why would I get rid of the cape? Wait a minute. I want to move the chat a little. There we go. I want people to be able to see the chat. Okay. So if you have a copy of the book, you can... Oh my god, don't break that illusion. If you have a copy of the book, you can read along. It's a long book, so this is going to be like about a half hour of reading. It'll be like 5 minutes. Do you remember Spooky September? Do you remember how fun Spooky September was? Because if you missed it, this was it. Alright. I'm going to put my headphones in, even though I'm not listening to anything. It's like I'm not really streaming if I don't have them in. Spider House Rules by Bagel411. Cover art by WolfGirl15. Good cover. Special thanks to Ada and Winwolves for editing this masterpiece. And a very special thanks to the twitch.tv/Bagel411 chat, who always believed that this was a real book. Chapter 1. A Mysterious Beginning. It was 8 p.m. when Brandon found himself standing in the backyard of a house he used to know. He had climbed over a fence and made his way up to an in-ground pool. The water was cold and still. Brandon peered into the water and gazed at his reflection. He had 8 legs and 1,000 spider mummy eyes. He was about 4 feet tall and had a weird mouth. "I'm a spider mummy," he said. Today was Brandon's birthday. He was 50,000 years old. He felt sad because he was so old, but also because he was a spider mummy. He was supposed to be a normal human boy, but terrible circumstances transformed him into the dastardly creature he was today. Brandon accepted his fate, but he was still really sad. Brandon did not cry, though. Spider mummies can't cry. Chapter 2. Returning to the Dark Cave. After much time contemplating his condition, Brandon returned to the Dark Cave. The Dark Cave was his home, but it was still just a cave in a mountain outside of the town he grew up in. As he approached the cave, he noticed that something was wrong. Beside the cave, there was a bush. And in that bush, there was something wicked. Something evil. It was wrappings. Were they spider mummy wrappings? No. They were regular mummy wrappings. The regular mummies had been to the Dark Cave. Brandon hurried into the Dark Cave. While he ran, he kept 4 of his 8 spider mummy legs up and in a fighting position, in case he had to resort to violence. He did not see the regular mummies anywhere, but then he heard a voice. "I saw the regular mummy wrappings too." Brandon looked up and saw Jake, his friend and roommate, and also a spider mummy. They both knew what this meant, that tonight was the night spoken of in the Dark Prophecy. Chapter 3. The Dark Prophecy and Brandon's mysterious origin. Jake told Brandon all about the Dark Prophecy. The prophecy said, After 50,000 years, the regular mummies will return to the Dark Cave to take over everything, and only the spider mummies can stop them. This all goes back to when Brandon first became a spider mummy. It was a dark night when Brandon was still just a regular human. He was outside playing with his younger sister. They were playing hide and seek, and it was Brandon's turn to hide. Brandon was only 5 human years old, but he was clever and a very good hider. 2 traits that would serve him well in his spider mummy years. Brandon decided to hide inside the family pool. He could hold his breath for up to 5 minutes, so he only had to surface for air every now and then. His sister would never find him, he thought. Unfortunately, he was right. As Brandon sank into the dark, cold pool water, he giggled to himself, but then he got bit by a spider. Brandon didn't see it coming. How could spiders swim? Spiders can't swim. No. But spider mummies can swim very well. Brandon didn't know about spider mummies, a species not quite spider and not quite mummy, but capable of things you wouldn't necessarily expect from either. Brandon quickly, but also painfully transformed into a spider mummy himself. "Why'd you do this to me?" Brandon asked in his new spider mummy voice. "Because you're the chosen one, Brandon. We need you to help us stop the regular mummy threat. The Dark Prophecy says that the regular mummies will one day return to the Dark Cave to take over everything, and only the spider mummies can stop them. I just defeated them a few days ago, by myself, but I'll need help next time." The second spider mummy was Jake. Those events occurred exactly 50,000 years ago. Or more accurately, 50,000 spider mummy years ago. In terms of human years, it was about 7 months. But a spider mummy's tormented existence is not measured in the same way as a human's is, for many reasons. After that moment of reflection, Jake looked down at Brandon because Jake was still on the ceiling. "Hey Brandon, yeah Jake, happy birthday. Chapter 4, regular mummies can't fly." Jake had made a cake for Brandon out of beetles and garbage, mostly as a joke since spider mummies do not require food, as they are instead fueled by an unholy necromancy. Even if they could have eaten it, they never would have the time, because the Dark Prophecy was now occurring. The mummies could be anywhere, inside the Dark Cave, outside the Dark Cave, or possibly, as Jake believed, up in the sky. "I've seen them up there, Brandon," Jake would yell, "soaring through the sky, like some sort of bird, soaring and glaring down at the Dark Cave, soaring and glaring down and waiting, always waiting and soaring and plotting and glaring, Jake. Oh, but Jake, you ask, for what reason, though, do they soar? Brandon, open your eyes, it's so simple. They want to fulfill the Dark Prophecy and take over everything." Brandon was skeptical. How could a regular mummy fly? They didn't have wings. Unless they had invisible wings, or some sort of jetpack. Maybe they had a glider, or a drone or something. As Brandon thought about the various methods a regular mummy could use to fly with, a loud and disturbing sound was heard from just outside the Dark Cave. It was an evil cry. A cry that sounded part like the roar of a lion, and another part like the screams of a wounded badger caught in the trap of a woodsman. "Roar-kaloo-kalay!" "Oh God," Jake exclaimed. "That's the unmistakable battle cry of the regular mummy." Chapter 5, Retribution. Upon hearing the scream, a flash of shock crossed Jake's spider mummy face, followed by a look of fierce condemnation toward regular mummies. The two of them spider mummy ran toward the entrance of the Dark Cave. While they were spider mummy running, Brandon looked over to Jake. "I'm scared, Jake. I never fought a regular mummy before." You just have to punch them, said Jake. Punch them with your legs. In front of them stood a regular mummy. He looked like a normal human, but he was covered in mummy wrappings and was 20 feet tall. I am Kyle, leader of the regular mummies, Kyle exclaimed. I am here to take over everything, as it is written in the Dark Prophecy. Just then, 30 regular mummies appeared from behind various bushes and rocks. They quickly surrounded Brandon and Jake. Brandon and Jake started punching. Don't stop punching until they're dead, reminded Jake. The two spider mummies killed all of the regular mummies, but Jake got kidnapped. No, said Brandon. Don't do that. I have Jake and will use him to complete the Dark Pact, replied Kyle. I will sacrifice him inside the dark cave at 5:30 a.m. just before sunrise. Then I will take over everything. Brandon fainted. Chapter 6. Revelations. Brandon woke up sometime later and glanced at his wristwatch. It was 4 a.m. Time was running out. He had to get into that cave and save his buddy. Brandon's spider mummy ran into the dark cave. He was moving quickly, gracefully, leaping over rocks, and tiptoeing past the hibernating bear. Jake and Brandon had known that bear for years. Jake used to call the bear Captain Bear, and it made Brandon laugh. There goes Captain Bear, Jake would shout. Oh, look, Captain Bear's snoring. Put a sock in it, Captain Bear, Jake would yell if the bear was hibernating. Brandon would completely lose it. Jake, your humor is on point, Brandon said while trying not to giggle. Thanks, replied Jake. You know, I used to be a professional clown before I was a spider mummy. I worked in the big top. I would perform in front of hundreds of thousands of carnival patrons. I would tell jokes and I did the trapeze. Jake paused for a moment. A serious look fell upon his face. I also trained the bears, he said. His voice was much more tense than it had been before. I taught them how to juggle and how to be friends with humans. I taught them so much, Brandon, but maybe I taught them too much. Brandon kept quiet. He knew Jake had been struggling emotionally, and he didn't want to interrupt the moment. Brandon had long felt that Jake had been bottling up his feelings. If Jake could come to terms with his carnival past here and now, then maybe he can kill the demons that haunt him. You see, I had a bear just like Captain Bear here, continued Jake. He was a loyal creature, big and strong, a great juggler. He was so dexterous. I swear, Brandon, I saw that bear do a cartwheel, and that's no joke. He did a cartwheel, Brandon. The bear did a cartwheel. I saw it. I knew that bear was special, he continued. I saw in him the potential to be something more than your typical juggling carnival bear. That's why I had to teach him the trapeze. Imagine, Brandon, a bear soaring through the sky, gracefully flowing his bare mass from bar to bar, flying through an up-in-the-air world not meant for him. Jake grimaced. It wasn't meant for him. The night of the big show, the bear performed a beautiful trapeze set. The crowd was mesmerized. How could a bear be so dexterous? I overheard a man say. That's when I noticed something. One of the trapeze bars was not attached to the rope. It was just two pieces of rope dangling with no wood between it. The part that you would grab wasn't there, Brandon. Where was the wood, Brandon? Jake was shouting now. I'll tell you where the wood was. It was with the regular mummies. They took the wood and they killed my Captain Bear. Brandon felt sad with Jake. That's why I became a spider mummy, Jake said. That's why I call that bear Captain Bear, because I'm used to calling bears Captain Bear. The Captain Bear from the dark cave did not wake up as Brandon tiptoed past him. He was fast asleep, hibernating, and was snoring. Put a sock in it, Captain Bear, Brandon whispered to himself. Brandon smiled and thought of Jake, but then remembered that Jake was about to be ritualistically murdered in an hour and a half. Brandon soon found himself at the back of the dark cave. Instead of the normal wall and floor that was always there, there was a giant, red, glowing hole. I bet Jake's in that giant, red, glowing hole, Brandon thought. Brandon created a web string with his spider mummy thorax and descended into the red hole. Chapter 7. The Red Hole. It took over an hour for Brandon to reach the bottom of the hole, or perhaps he had reached the top, because when he reached the end, he found that he was no longer in the dark cave, but rather in a strange world, with a sky above his head, and also gravity was reversed, so now he was standing on what had been the other side of the ceiling. It was like everything was upside down now, but it made sense because there was a sky. The sky was dark because it was also nighttime in this world, and you could see the stars, and you could see Jupiter. But Jupiter was weird. Like, it was too big. It was as if this strange new place that Brandon had found himself was somehow closer to Jupiter. Much, much closer to Jupiter than Earth had been. Compared to how big Earth's moon looks from Earth, Jupiter, where Brandon was standing, looked to be about 4 times as big. Wow, that Jupiter is pretty big, said Brandon. In the distance, Brandon saw several pyramids, and the ground was made of sand, not grass and dirt, like he was used to. This was clearly a desert pyramid world. Brandon began connecting the dots. Wait a minute, Brandon said. Sand? Regular mummies love sand. Pyramids. Regular mummies live in pyramids. Large Jupiter. Regular mummies live on an unknown planet close to Jupiter. He paused for a few more minutes. I'm on the planet of the regular mummies. Chapter 8. Brandon figures it out. Brandon was clever, and he noticed some footprints in the sand leading to one of the pyramids. He guessed they were from the regular mummy Kyle, because they appeared to be made by a creature who was about 20 feet tall. He also noticed someone wrote, "Help me, Brandon," in the sand. That's the kind of message Jake would write, Brandon exclaimed. While he was following the tracks, Brandon noticed a sign that said the name of the planet was Regular Mummitopia. Yes, all the pieces of the puzzle are coming together, thought Brandon. I just need to save Jake and kill Kyle. Chapter 9. Retribution. It was 5:20 a.m., and Jake was going to be killed in 10 minutes. Brandon hurried into the Grand Pyramid and saw Kyle the regular mummy holding the blood sacrifice dagger. The dagger was very big because Kyle was 20 feet tall. Brandon looked at Kyle's dagger and said, "That's a big dagger you have. You'd be ashamed if you stabbed yourself with it." Before Brandon finished his sentence, he had already begun running toward Kyle. Kyle was on the other side of the blood sacrifice chamber, so it took Brandon around 20 seconds to reach him. But when he did, he grabbed the dagger and stabbed Kyle with it. Before he died, Kyle started the self-destruct sequence of regular Mummitopia. "You may have killed me," Kyle said as he began dying. "But I am gonna kill you too." Kyle's eyes shut, and his life essence began to seep out from between his regular mummy wrappings. It was a purple liquid that smelled terrible. Smells like poo, Brandon thought. As Kyle's now dead regular mummy body began to melt and explode, Brandon turned and ran to the blood sacrifice table that Jake was tied to. "You did it, big guy," Jake said. Brandon hated being called big guy and untied Jake. Just before they could embrace for a heartfelt spider mummy hug, a robot regular mummy voice came blaring out of the Grand Pyramid speakers. 2 minutes until total destruction of regular Mummytopia. "My God, the whole planet's gonna blow up," cried Jake. "What are we gonna do?" Brandon felt really scared and looked around and noticed something in the room he hadn't noticed earlier. It was their friend and ally. It was Captain Bear. Chapter 10. Captain Bear. "Quickly, boys, follow Captain Bear!" Captain Bear exclaimed in a calm, not at all bear-like voice. "How'd you get here?" asked Brandon. It was then that Brandon figured out that Captain Bear was more than just a nickname. Docked outside the Grand Pyramid was a massive Corvette-class astroship. It was powered by quad-ion space thrusters, and it had a reverse-magnetized gravosphere. The outside was made of futuranium, and it had a blinking red light on the top. That doesn't make sense, thought Brandon. Did Jake know that this bear, who he called Captain Bear because of a previous bear he knew, was literally the captain of a ship and also went by the name Captain Bear? Chapter 11. Sacrifice in Outer Space. As the three... As the three friends, or the three amigos, as Jake was now calling them, took off into space, the planet of regular Mummytopia blew up. Little bits of planet flew past their ship, including the Grand Pyramid. Jake looked inside the front door of the Grand Pyramid as it flew by and saw an alive Kyle get into a regular mummy spaceship and launching out the door toward them. "We got trouble, amigos," said Jake. "I see him, big guy," said Captain Bear. "Jake, I want you to go to the laser room and get the laser gun. You're gonna have to blow up Kyle's regular mummy spaceship with lasers." "I've never fired a laser before," Jake said. "Jake, you must believe in yourself," said Captain Bear. "There have been times in my bear life where I too have felt the anxiety of firing the laser gun. But you must not live your life being ruled by self-doubt." Jake nodded and mounted the laser gun. He began shooting lasers at Kyle's regular mummy spaceship. Pew pew! They were getting shot right at Kyle's regular mummy spaceship, but they did not hit it. "This ain't working, amigos," yelled Jake. "I think he has a force field or something." "Okay," said Captain Bear. "I know what I must do. Please, Jake, help load me into the laser cannon. We will shoot me." "No!" cried Jake. "I've already lost one, Captain Bear. I'm not gonna lose two." Brandon, who had been listening to the entire conversation, continued to listen. Brandon found out that Captain Bear was from a race of space bears who are all known as Captain Bear. The Captain Bear Jake had known during his carnival days was of the same species as this Captain Bear. These space bears are like normal bears, but can talk and enjoy flying. "You can't fly!" yelled Jake. "This isn't flying," said Captain Bear. "This is just holding my breath and swimming. When I was a young bear cub, I used to swim up the mountain rivers of Space Beartopia with my papa, hunting galaxy salmon. The galaxy salmon are a wonderful creature, Jake. They are a proud fish, and to eat them was to know them." "I'm gonna miss you, big guy," said a shaken Jake. Jake closed his eyes as he pulled the trigger. Captain Bear hurtled toward the ship, and with a fierce bite, Captain Bear tore through the force field and ate Kyle. The ship blew up. Captain Bear died. "I'm gonna miss that bear," said Jake. Chapter 12. Redemption. After landing on Earth, Jake and Brandon went back to the Dark Cave. The regular Mummy Space Menace had been defeated. Regular Mummytopia had been destroyed. The Dark Pact had been stopped, and peace was at hand. Jake looked upset, but that made sense because he just killed his second space bear. "What are we gonna do now, Jake?" asked Brandon, trying to get Jake's mind off the situation. "Well," answered Jake, "we need to report that our mission was a success." "Wait a minute," cried Brandon. "Report? Mission? What's this all about?" Jake opened his coat pocket, revealing a photo of Barack Obama, the current president of the United States. "A friend," Jake said. Just then, they heard a savage noise coming from the other part of the dark cave. Brooga! "Could it be more regular mummies?" asked a panicked Brandon. Jake shook his head. "No, but I have a feeling that what we're gonna find will be even more shocking." The two spider mummies ran to the other side of the dark cave, and there, nestled in the corner, were 10 little bear babies. "Captain Bear was pregnant," said Brandon in disbelief. "Jake, what are we gonna do with all these bear babies?" Jake looked at his photo of Barack Obama. "I think I know a good home." The end. Next time on Splatterhouse Rules. "Barack, I told you I don't want any more bear babies living in the White House," shouted an upset Michelle Obama. "I didn't bring them here," pleaded Barack Obama. "It was Jake and Brandon, the spider mummies." "Barack, this is the last straw," replied Michelle Obama. "If you want to keep those bear babies, then you and the bear babies can live on that side of the White House." Michelle Obama pulled a roll of tape out of her pocket of her jean jacket and proceeded to put tape across the middle of the Oval Office floor, separating the room in 2 even halves. "Now you and the bear babies can stay on that side of the White House, and I will stay on this side of the White House," said a confident Michelle Obama as she tucked the tape back into the pocket of her jean jacket. "But honey," replied Barack Obama, "your side of the White House has the cotton candy stand I like, and the bathroom. This isn't fair." "No," replied Michelle Obama, "but it sure is bear." To continue reading, please purchase Splatterhouse Rules 2, My Bear Lady. A beautiful story about how Michelle Obama does not want to have bears living in the White House, but then, on Christmas Eve, is transformed into a bear by the ghost of Christmas past. The end. That's it. That's the book. Thank you guys for making this a reality. This was a complete reading of Splatterhouse Rules by Bagel411. Quite possibly the greatest book ever written. That's it. The book. Thought it wasn't real. Got a friggin' ISBN on the back of that thing. Real book. You can purchase it below if you want your own copy.